Let me start the recording. There we go. It started. So what we're going to talk about here is the light snow we're still expecting. You may have attended our briefing yesterday afternoon. There's been a few changes, which I'll summarize here in the next slide. There we go. So what we're highlighting here is we're still expecting light snow, and that area is expanded slightly to the east. We're not increasing amounts much, just a little bit there in the north and also in parts of west central Georgia. So we have slightly higher amounts, but for the most case, it's still less than an inch everywhere. Because of that, our definition of a winter weather advisory is any snow that causes impact or any kind of ice that causes impact. Even for light amounts, the problem with this event is that temperatures are quite cold and they're going to be going down quickly. So especially aloft and at the surface, temperatures are very cold. I'm seeing some messages you can't hear me, so 403. Yeah, I'll keep going. I think most people can hear me, but if you're not, you might have to go on to the phone line. What's that?
Do you want to give them that one?
Yeah, I can, if we type that on the screen, let me know in the chat real quickly here if you're not hearing audio on the web. I see no sound, no sound. Gosh, it says it's muted. Okay, one more time. Can anyone hear me on the audio through the GoToMeeting? Okay, I see some people saying yes. I turned the mic on and off, so that may have done the trick. If you're still not getting audio, let me give you the phone number, and you can write this down or type it into your phone. The phone number is 866-231-8384. The participant code is 770-486-1133, and then the pound sign, which is actually our office phone number. So it should be easy to remember. That should be all you need to get into the audio through the phone. Okay, well, I apologize for that. So getting back to the briefing, far northwest Georgia, when we're looking for onset time, and I'll have some slides to go into the little more detail, just show you maybe exactly where we're thinking we should be okay until about noon is when it would be moving into, say, Dade County, Whitfield County, that far northwest corner of the state. It'll take some time for it to spread in. We do have some dry air pushing in with this cold air. It's not a typical winter storm system where we get a strong low pressure system to our south and wrap around and moisture in the area and temperatures kind of staying constant or even increasing. In this case, we actually have a strong cold front bringing cooling temperatures while the snow is occurring. So, all right, I see people asking for the phone number on the screen. I might be able to type that while we're going here. So if you need that, I've got it on the screen. So let me try one more time to push the button off. Okay, well, I've got the phone number on the screen. I'm going to leave that there for a couple minutes while I talk a little bit more about timing. Northwest Atlanta metro area, that and the rest of North Georgia, so maybe a line from roughly south of Rome all the way up to Cherokee County, maybe Canton, those areas up to Blairsville. That's when we're expecting onset to be more 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. West Central Georgia and South Atlanta Metro, what we're expecting, there could be a secondary band that develops. This first band looks more substantial as it enters northwest Georgia, and then it weakens as it moves into Atlanta. What could happen is that precipitation could fizzle out completely by late afternoon and early evening. Another band may move in from southern Alabama into west central Georgia and affect South Atlanta Metro between 7 and 9 p.m., where it could move in and persist much of the evening and into the overnight. So we'll talk about that in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and leave this phone number on the screen, or maybe I can cut and paste that into the next slide so we don't delay people that are getting audio. There we go. So anyway, here's what we're expecting for snow amount for the area. This has gone up just a little bit there. There's kind of a higher elevation there in the western part of Fannin County. That's the Cuyahoga Wilderness. There's not a lot of population out there, so don't be too alarmed by seeing amounts close to 2 inches up there. But in the populated areas, you can see the amounts that are highlighted on the map. Mostly 1 inch. You know, you got up into Dade County towards the suburbs of Chattanooga, Lookout Mountain. Those areas could get up to 1.5 inches now. In the Atlanta metro area, we're looking at around a 1/2 inch. And you can kind of see hints of that secondary band that may be developing in the evening over west central Georgia. Believe it or not, we ran the accumulation several times and we kept getting the same numbers, with LaGrange actually coming up with higher amounts than, say, a lot of the North Atlanta metro areas, which you kind of have to understand that the time frame may be the secondary band that we're mentioning. So with that said, I'm going to move on, and hopefully everyone's got the audio figured out by now, or maybe you can pass that around or text that to some of your colleagues. The winter weather advisory looks like this now. It's expanded further east. There's 2 areas where we have the onset time in the northwest counties being at noon. The rest of the area starts at 5 p.m. Both of these expire sometime Wednesday morning. You know, most of the snow should be ended. There is going to be snow further east. We haven't issued a special weather statement yet, but we're going to be doing that shortly. That'll cover all the areas to the east, like Athens, Macon, and Americus. You're going to likely see snow. It's just a question of how much. The amount seems so small, we're just not sure that there'll be impacts. Some of us were having a discussion here in the office that this could be the type of the snow, and we're not going to pin this down by any means, but this could be the type of snow since the air is fairly dry at the surface when it first falls. It may be like a snow grain, like a soft sleet or a white sleet pellet that wouldn't cause as much problems as one of the big flakes. But anyway, that's a possibility. So what we're going to be doing is probably issuing a special weather statement. So be prepared. Those areas, Athens, Macon, Americus, you're on the edge, anywhere in that area right up to the east of that advisory area. Be prepared, you know, for things to change. This would all be in your areas. Those would be happening Tuesday night. Tonight, probably midnight or so, maybe a little bit earlier than that, late evening to midnight-ish. In the rest of East Georgia towards Dublin, it may end up by, we get that late, maybe mostly flurries by sunrise on Wednesday morning. So obviously with temperatures that cold, it's going to be, you know, it's still a problem. It's just how much, it takes a certain amount of snow and liquid to cause any kind of ice. So we're thinking that those areas to the east will be mostly okay with travel problems, very minimal. So timing, here's our precipitation. One of our computer forecasts is on the left. This is at 1 p.m. It kind of shows it moving into the far northwest. There's 1 or 2 models that are an hour sooner than this, but for the most part, we're not seeing any indication of anything before noon. We're going to be watching it closely, of course. The temperatures are, again, the problem. There's a strong cold front, and by this time at 1 p.m., it's already going to be below freezing in Trenton. Temperatures near freezing that white area, but Rome, we're looking good at 1 o'clock. Temperature of 41. So we have some pretty good warm air. We may get some good sunshine this morning. That's going to help temperatures warm up a little bit. It's not uncommon for fronts like this when they're strong to be a little bit warmer than expected ahead of time. So that may work in our favor to keep things pinned up in the far northwest part of the state and leaving the rest of North Georgia kind of above freezing. By the time we get to 7 p.m., though, it's the afternoon has passed, the sun has gone down, and the front's expected to really accelerate. Temperatures, that white area, are going to be below freezing. It's already well into the Atlanta metro, kind of pushing into the perimeter at this time at 7. The blue areas on the left is where we expect snow. You could actually see snow with temperatures above freezing in this case, maybe 34 or 35 degrees. But obviously the travel problems will kick in more when we get below freezing. Overnight Tuesday, this is now 1 in the morning, the Wednesday morning, and you can kind of see hints in this computer forecast of the secondary band over west central Georgia and Atlanta. Some of the models, and most of the models we're looking at, and this is just one example, to not follow, don't be careful not to follow this particular one too closely. Maybe a little bit further south, especially like West Atlanta metro, it may look a little bit different. So kind of use the total snow accumulation map as a guide, and I can show that at the end. The temperatures, as far as freezing by 1 a.m., it's really it's approaching Macon for freezing temperatures, below freezing at Columbus, below at Athens. It's just, will we see any precipitation in those areas? That's the question. Temperatures, by the way, up into the northwest are already approaching the teens, near 10 degrees there in the mountains at this time, so pretty substantial cold front. 7 a.m. Wednesday, even colder temperatures, and the wind's really going to start kicking in Wednesday morning, late Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. That's when it really peaks up. We've got our wind chill values at that time below zero in many locations. The freezing line here is at Dublin. That light precipitation, that's almost our lightest category of rain or precipitation. So these would be amounts of maybe 1/100th of an inch of liquid, about maybe 1/10 of an inch of snow. If you could get a coating, it's probably best to call it a dusting or a coating at this point. Lows, here's the temperatures we talked about earlier. That's the lows for Wednesday morning, probably around sunrise. On the screen, teens across pretty much all of northwest Georgia, 20s. Once you get down to about Columbus, Macon, Athens, those areas will be 20, but the temperatures could be falling just a bit at sunrise in those areas in the far southeast. Wind chills. So these are the purple areas in the north that are going to be well below zero. Some readings could be as cold as -10. That's going to peak in the morning, but it's going to be cold all day, especially in the mountains. We expanded the wind chill advisory all the way into Thursday morning for those northeast counties, including Blairsville, for the wind chill advisory. So that's the areas in purple is under the wind chill advisory, but just be aware that, especially in the mountains, the wind chills, because it's a little windier up there in the higher elevations, is going to persist for some time. And high temperatures Wednesday, just to reiterate why we're saying we're not going to see much melting. Low temperature or high temperatures Wednesday, the highest it could possibly get. This has gone down a little bit from the previous forecast. We're only looking for a high of 28 in Atlanta. The white area is the freezing area. The high temperatures around freezing. And, maybe Athens, Macon, and Columbus could get above freezing here during the day. Now, I've got a sentence there about black ice potential. I wanted to mention this. As far as black ice potential compared with a typical storm system or winter system, we're not anticipating as big a problem with black ice because the precipitation is going to be so light. Normally, we'd need like an inch of liquid equivalent or a ½ inch or maybe even a quarter inch of liquid equivalent before you get runoff and rain or anything, any precipitation, even if it's rain. If it kind of accumulates in the mountains or hills and runs off into the roadways, especially where they cut out the mountains to make the roads, you can get black ice problems big time when that happens. But in this case, we're only expecting very small amounts of precipitation, 5/100ths, maybe a 1/10 of an inch of liquid. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't, you can mention that, but I don't see a lot of problems with black ice in this particular event. So to summarize again, light snow remains likely across the area. We've expanded the snow amounts to the east and the advisory as well. The wind chill advisory has been issued, and that's again for that same area. Is about where the winter weather advisory is where we have the wind chill advisory pretty much. Onset times are there on the screen. You can see it should be moving into the northwest corner around noon, maybe a little bit later. And you can see the other times for the rest of the area. So that's about it. We do have another webinar coming up today at 1 p.m. Hold on. Is that 10 p.m.? Okay. I believe this slide may be incorrect because I believe it's starting at 10. So let me make a change here. Unless something has changed. I believe it's at 10. You should have seen an email. Right. Yeah. Sorry about that. This should be 10 a.m. So it may contain a lot of the same information that was in this webinar, but they may have some, there may be decisions that need to be made at this time for the Atlanta metro area, for instance, about school activities or after-school activities and things of that nature that could be discussed then. So I've got a few questions on the screen here. Most of them, it looks like we're about the sound before 4:05. Let me stop the recording and answer questions.